The words didn't cut like a knife. That would be too poetic, too clean. A knife wound heals. A knife wound leaves a scar you can point to and say, "This is where I survived." No. The words were heavy, blunt, crushing things. They were the sound of a stone door slamming shut on a tomb. Get out. You are weak. You are nothing. That memory is 5 years old, but it tastes like fresh blood in the back of the throat. It tastes like rain mixed with salt tears, the specific bitter flavor of a heartbreaking in real time. But there is no time for memory now. There is no time for the girl who stood shivering in the courtyard of the Alpha's estate, clutching a secret in her belly that would have changed everything if only he had let her speak. That girl is dead. She died in the snow the night she was exiled. The woman standing here now, knee-deep in the rotting sludge of the borderlands, does not shiver. A low, wet growl vibrates through the soles of her boots. It is a sound that shouldn't exist in nature, the sound of lungs filled with fluid, of a throat raw from screaming. The shadow blight. It has found them again. Lyra tightens her grip on the handle of the twin blades crossed over her chest. The leather of her gloves groans, a soft sound swallowed by the howling wind. The air here smells of sulfur and old sickness, the scent of a forest that has forgotten how to grow. In front of her, the trees are black skeletons clawing at a gray, indifferent sky. And between those trees, the darkness moves. It is not a shadow. It is a beast. A wolf once. Maybe a father, maybe a brother. Now it is just a vessel for the plague. Its fur has sloughed off in patches, revealing gray, weeping skin. Its eyes are gone, replaced by burning sockets of violet light. It doesn't hunt with scent. It hunts with a hunger for the soul. She does not shift. She cannot. She is a null. A defect. A mistake of biology. That was why he hated her. That was why the pack looked through her as if she were made of glass. A wolf who cannot turn is just human meat in a world of predators. But they were wrong. Being a null doesn't mean you are empty. It means you are a vessel for something else. Something colder. The beast lunges. It moves with a terrifying, jerky speed, a blur of rot and teeth. Lyra doesn't panic. Panic is a luxury for the protected, for the beloved, for the wives sleeping safely in the Alpha's bed. Lyra simply exhales. She drops her center of gravity, sliding her left boot through the mud and twists. The beast's jaws snap shut on empty air, inches from her throat. The wind of its passing whips her hair across her face, stinging her eyes. She doesn't blink. With a fluid, practiced motion, she drives the silver-edged blade in her right hand upward. It isn't a chaotic swing, it is surgical. The metal bites deep into the creature's flank, not seeking muscle, but seeking the heavy, black veins that pump the infection through its body. The creature screeches, a sound like metal tearing, and thrashes away, black blood sizzling where it hits the snow. She doesn't wait. In this world, hesitation is a death sentence. She pursues. She is the predator here. She, the girl they called weak. She, the girl they said wouldn't survive the first winter. She moves like smoke, silent and deadly. But then, a sound stops her heart cold. A twig snaps. Not from the beast. From behind her. From the direction of the cave. The fear that spikes in her chest is hot and agonizing. It is not fear for herself. It is the primal, terrifying instinct of a mother who realizes the wolf is at the door. Alara. The 5-year-old girl was supposed to be asleep. She was supposed to be hidden in the back of the shallow cavern, wrapped in the furs Lyra had scraped together, safe behind the wards of ash and salt. But Alara is her mother's daughter. She is curious. And she is drawn to the danger. Lyra spins around, turning her back on the wounded beast, a tactical error that would make any warrior scream. But she has to see. There, standing at the mouth of the cave, is the small, fragile silhouette. A little girl with messy dark curls and eyes that hold too much wisdom for her age. She is clutching a ragged doll, her breath puffing out in small white clouds. She isn't looking at her mother. She is looking past her, her eyes wide, fixed on the horror rising from the mud. The beast has recovered. It sees the child. The shift in the creature's demeanor is instant. The hunger sharpens. The mindless rage focuses into a singular, malicious intent. The shadow blight craves magic. It craves potential. And the child burns with it. Lyra screams a raw, wordless sound of fury. She throws herself between the monster and her daughter, abandoning all defense. The beast leaps, massive and heavy, slamming into her chest. The impact knocks the wind out of her, sending her crashing into the hard, frozen earth. Pain explodes in her shoulder. The smell of rot fills her nose, suffocating her. The creature's weight is crushing, its claws digging into the leather of her armor, seeking the soft flesh beneath. Snapping jaws descend toward her face, dripping venomous saliva. She holds the beast back with the haft of her blade, her arms shaking under the strain. The monster is strong, fueled by the unnatural strength of the plague. It pushes down, inches at a time. Lyra can see the madness in those violet eyes. She can feel the heat radiating from its sickness. She is going to die. That is the thought that flashes through her mind. She is going to die here, in the mud, 5 years after she was supposed to disappear. No. The thought isn't a plea. It is a command. She hears Alara cry out, "Mama." That single word unlocks the cage in Lyra's chest. The place where she keeps the void. The place where the null power sleeps. She looks into the beast's eyes and lets go of the blade. For a second, the creature is confused. It lunges forward for the kill. But Lyra's hands are free now. She slams her palms against the creature's chest, right over its corrupted heart. She doesn't push with muscle. She pushes with her soul. Burn. A shockwave of silence blasts outward. It isn't fire. It isn't lightning. It is the absence of things. A gray, colorless energy erupts from her hands, washing over the beast. The creature freezes. It doesn't scream because it no longer has the breath. In the span of a heartbeat, the monster simply unspools. Its flesh turns to gray dust. Its bones crumble to chalk. The momentum of its leap dissolves into a cloud of ash that rains down on Lyra's face. Silence returns to the forest. The wind howls, lonely and bitter. Lyra lies on her back, gasping, staring up at the gray sky. Her hands are trembling. The use of the void leaves her feeling hollowed out, scraped clean inside. It feels like the rejection all over again. Cold. Empty. She forces herself to sit up. She wipes the ash of the dead wolf from her cheek. It smears, dark and greasy. "Mama?" The voice is small, trembling. Lyra scrambles to her feet, ignoring the bruising on her ribs, ignoring the exhaustion dragging at her limbs. She rushes to the cave entrance and scoops the child into her arms. She buries her face in Alara's neck, breathing in the scent of milk and pine needles, the only clean things left in this world. "I told you to stay inside," Lyra whispers, her voice cracking. She squeezes the girl tight, tight enough to bruise, needing to feel the solid warmth of her. "You have to listen to me, Alara. You have to." It was loud, Alara mumbles, clutching Lyra's tunic. The bad dog was loud. Lyra pulls back, cupping her daughter's face. She looks into eyes that are the exact same shade of amber as the man who banished them. The man who sits on a throne of gold while they sleep in dirt. Kieran. The anger flares, hot and sudden, burning away the fear. He did this. He sent them here. He sentenced his own child to a life of running, of hiding in caves, of being hunted by monsters that shouldn't exist. She looks out at the forest. The attack wasn't random. The shadow beasts are getting organized. They're hunting. And they're getting closer. The cave isn't safe. The borderlands aren't safe. Lyra stands up, lifting Alara onto her hip. She walks back into the cave, not to sleep, but to pack. She grabs the satchel of dried meat, the few coins they have left, the map that is worn soft at the folds. She catches her reflection in a shard of polished metal hanging near the entrance. The woman staring back is stranger to her. Her hair is chopped short, jagged and practical. A scar runs through her left eyebrow. Her eyes are cold, hard flint. "Where are we going?" Alara asks, watching her mother shove items into the bag with frantic urgency. Lyra pauses. She looks at the map. To the north, the ice packs. Death. To the west, the ocean. Trapped. To the east, the wasteland. There is only one place left. The one place she swore she would never return. The place where the walls are high, and the soldiers are strong, and the food is plentiful. The heart of the kingdom. The dragon's Denver. The lion's mouth. We are going to find a job, Lyra says, her voice flat, devoid of the terror she feels. She ties the cloak around her shoulders, hiding the daggers, hiding the shape of her body. A job? Alara asks. Yes, Lyra says. She touches the hilt of her blade. I heard a rumor. The king is hiring mercenaries. He needs killers. A dark, humorless smile touches her lips. It doesn't reach her eyes. And I am the best killer he will ever meet. She steps out of the cave, leaving the safety of the shadows, walking straight into the storm. She doesn't know that miles away, in a castle of stone and regret, a man is waking up from a nightmare, whispering her name. She doesn't know that the threads of fate are pulling them together, tightening around their throats like a noose. She only knows one thing: she will do anything to keep her daughter alive. Even if she has to look into the eyes of the man who broke her and pretend she doesn't know him. Even if she has to save the kingdom that wanted her dead. But the road back is long and the shadows are watching. And out here, in the dark, the question isn't who will save you. It's who will survive you. This is the story of a love that didn't die, it just learned how to hunt. This is the story of the flame that burns in the void. Before we continue, please subscribe to Cindy's Wolfheart Stories. Your support means a lot. The Black Hollow is not a place you go to be found. It is a place you go to disappear. It is a tavern carved into the roots of a dead mountain, located in the lawless strip of land between the Wolf Kingdom and the Wasteland. The air inside is thick enough to chew a toxic stew of unwashed bodies, cheap ale, and the metallic tang of dried blood. It is a place where names are currency and most people are bankrupt. Lyra sits in the darkest corner, her back pressed against the damp stone wall. She is not Lyra here. Lyra was a girl who wore soft cotton dresses and braided flowers into her hair. That girl would have fainted at the threshold of this pit. The woman sitting here is Viper. She wears a hooded cloak made of rough, dark wool that smells of smoke and road dust. Her face is shadowed, hidden deep within the cowl. Her hands, gloved in worn leather, rest on the scarred wood of the table, wrapped around a mug of water she has no intention of drinking. She is waiting. The message had been specific. Midnight. The back table. Come alone. Her heart is a traitor in her chest. It hammers against her ribs, a frantic, bird-like rhythm that threatens to give her away. She tells herself it is just the adrenaline. She tells herself it is just the danger of the job. But she knows better. She knows who is coming. And then, the heavy oak door creaks open. The silence that sweeps through the tavern is instant. It is violent. The laughter dies. The clatter of mugs stops. Even the fire seems to dim, as if the oxygen has been sucked out of the room. He walks in. 5 years. It has been 5 years, 3 months, and 4 days since she last saw his face. Time is supposed to blur the edges of memory. It is supposed to fade the colors. But seeing him now, it is as if no time has passed at all. And yet, everything has changed. Kieran. The Alpha King. He does not look like the arrogant prince who stood on the balcony and banished her. That boy was golden, untouched, polished like a trophy. The man standing in the doorway is made of iron and storms. His shoulders are broader, weighed down by a heavy fur cloak that looks more like a burden than a luxury. His face, once smooth, is etched with lines of exhaustion. There is a scar running down his jawline, a jagged white line that speaks of a battle he didn't quite win. He brings the cold in with him. The wind howls through the open door, swirling the sawdust on the floor, before his guards step in and seal the room. But Kieran doesn't wait for them. He doesn't wait for an announcement. He scans the room with eyes that burn like molten gold. Lyra stops breathing. She forces her heart to slow down. She forces her scent, what little there is of it, to remain neutral. I am a stone, she thinks. I am a shadow. I am nothing. His gaze sweeps over the thugs, the gamblers, the thieves. And then it lands on her. For a terrifying second, she thinks he sees through the hood. She thinks he sees the girl he threw away. But his eyes don't widen with recognition. They narrow with calculation. He doesn't see Lyra. He sees Viper. He sees the mercenary who killed a shadow beast single-handedly. He sees a weapon. He walks toward her. The crowd parts for him like water. They shrink away, terrified of the alpha power radiating off him. It is a physical pressure, a heaviness in the air that makes your knees want to buckle. It is the command to submit. But Lyra does not submit. She cannot. The void inside her, that cold emptiness that makes her a null, acts as a shield. His alpha command washes over her and finds no purchase. She sits perfectly still, staring at his boots as they stop in front of her table. He pulls out the chair opposite her and sits. The wood creaks under his weight. Up close, he smells of rain, pine, and something sharper, antiseptic and old blood. The smell of a hospital. The smell of a plague ward. He places a heavy bag of coins on the table. The sound is loud in the silent room. He speaks, and his voice vibrates in her bones. It is deeper than she remembers, roughened by command and smoke. He says he heard she is the best. He says he heard she killed a beast in the northern woods without shifting. He says he needs that skill. Lyra keeps her head down, her voice a rough, disguised rasp. She asks him what the job is. She plays the part. She is the mercenary who cares only for gold. He leans in. The candlelight catches the gold in his eyes, and she sees the desperation there. It is a naked, raw thing. This is a man who has run out of options. He tells her the kingdom is dying. He tells her the blight has breached the inner walls. He tells her that his soldiers are turning, their minds eaten by the shadows, and he has to kill his own men to save the rest. He admits he is losing. Hearing him say that, hearing the invincible Alpha King admit defeat, is a shock Lyra wasn't prepared for. A twisted part of her wants to laugh. You called me weak, she thinks. You told me I was the one who wouldn't survive. Look at us now. But she doesn't laugh. Because she remembers Alara waiting in the carriage outside, hidden under blankets. She remembers the way the beast looked at her daughter. He continues. He says there is a rumor of a source, a nest where the shadow beasts are being birthed. He needs someone who can walk into the dark places where alphas cannot go. He needs someone who is immune to the alpha-stripping power of the blight. He needs a ghost. He pauses, and the air between them grows thick. He studies her hooded face, searching for something. He leans closer, inhaling deeply, trying to catch her scent. He frowns. He says she smells like nothing. Like rain on cold stone. He says it is familiar. Lyra's hand tightens on the mug until her knuckles turn white under the leather. Don't recognize me, she prays. Please, for the love of the moon, don't know who I am. He pulls back, shaking his head as if dispelling a ghost. He dismisses the thought. He tells her the pay is triple whatever her usual rate is. He offers her land. He offers her a title. Lyra interrupts him. She doesn't want land. She doesn't want a title in a kingdom that rejected her. She names her price. She wants safety. She wants unrestricted access to the royal archives, where the ancient medical texts are kept. And she wants a cottage within the inner sanctuary, the only place safe from the roving packs of beasts. He agrees without hesitation. He would have given her the crown if she asked for it. That is how desperate he is. He stands up to leave, the meeting over. But then he pauses. His hand rests on the table, inches from hers. He looks down at her, and for a moment, the king vanishes, and just the man remains. He asks her if she has a name. A real one. Not Viper. Lyra freezes. The truth is on the tip of her tongue. It would be so easy to say it. I am Lyra. I am the mother of your child. I am the mistake you made. But she swallows the truth. It tastes like ash. She tells him her name is just Viper. That is all he paid for. He nods, a shadow of disappointment crossing his face. He turns and walks away, his heavy cloak swirling around him, the guards falling into step behind him. The door opens, letting in the cold night air, and then slams shut. Lyra lets out a breath she didn't know she was holding. She is trembling now, a violent shaking that starts in her hands and spreads to her core. It wasn't fear of the king. It was the terrifying realization of what she felt when he looked at her. She hates him. She hates him for what he did. She hates him for the poverty, the exile, the cold nights holding a crying baby. But beneath the hate, beneath the scar tissue of her heart, something else stirred. A spark. A pull. The mate bond she thought she had severed with a knife 5 years ago. It isn't dead. It was just sleeping. And being near him woke it up. She pushes the bag of gold into her cloak and stands up. She has a job to do. She has to save the kingdom, to save her daughter. She has to work side by side with the man who ruined her life. She walks toward the door, stepping into the night. The game has begun. She is the Viper now. And she has to make sure that when she strikes, she doesn't end up poisoning herself. Because the Alpha King didn't just look at her like a weapon. He looked at her like a man starving looks at bread. And that is the most dangerous thing of all. The savior has arrived. But nobody knows she is also the victim. The wheels of the carriage groan against the frozen mud. It is a rhythmic, hypnotic sound. Clack. Drag. Clack. Drag. It sounds like a heartbeat that is struggling to keep going. Inside the dark cabin, the air is cold, despite the heavy furs Lyra has piled around her daughter. Lyra watches Lyra sleep. The child's face is soft, relaxed in a way Lyra's hasn't been in 5 years. Lyra's eyelashes flutter against her cheeks, dreaming of things that aren't monsters. She looks so much like him. The curve of her jaw. The stubborn set of her mouth even when she's resting. It is a cruel joke of biology that the man who wanted nothing to do with them is stamped into every feature of the child he doesn't know exists. Lyra looks away. She stares out the small, grimy window at the passing trees. The forest is a blur of gray and black, but in her mind, the colors change. The gray turns to the blue of a stormy evening. The mud turns to white marble. The silence turns to the sound of rain hitting stone. She is back there. She is always back there. 5 years ago. The courtyard of the Moonstone Pack. It was raining that night, a freezing downpour that soaked through her thin dress in seconds. She stood at the bottom of the stairs, shivering so hard her teeth chattered. She remembers the smell of the whetstone. She remembers the way the pack members watched from the windows, their faces pale blurs behind the glass, silent witnesses to her execution. And there, at the top of the stairs, stood Kieran. He didn't look like a monster then. He looked like a god. He was the alpha heir, glowing with power and promise. And she was the null. The empty spot in the room. The glitch. Born to a beta line but stripped of a wolf spirit. She couldn't shift. She couldn't feel the pack link. To them, she was broken. To him, she was an embarrassment. She remembers reaching out a hand. She remembers the desperate, foolish hope that maybe, just maybe, their childhood friendship would matter more than pack politics. She had a secret pressed against the inside of her ribs, a tiny spark of life that she wanted to tell him about. "I'm pregnant," she wanted to scream. "I'm carrying your heir." But he never gave her the chance. His voice wasn't angry. That would have been easier. Anger implies passion. Anger implies that he felt something. No, his voice was cold. Indifferent. It was the voice of a man discarding a broken tool. "You are weak, Lyra. You are a liability. Winter is coming, and we cannot waste food on a wolf who cannot hunt. You have no scent. You have no spirit. Get out." He turned his back. That was the moment that killed her. Not the words, but the turning away. He walked back into the warmth of the pack house, into the light, and left her in the dark. She remembers stumbling through the gates. She remembers the mud sucking at her boots, trying to pull her down. She walked until her feet bled. She walked until the cold numbed her skin, then her muscles, then her bones. She found a hollowed-out tree root and curled up inside, waiting to die. She apologized to the tiny life inside her. "I'm sorry," she whispered to the snow. "I'm sorry I couldn't be strong enough for us." But death didn't come. Something else did. As the hypothermia set in, as the darkness crept into her vision, a heat exploded in her chest. It wasn't the golden warmth of a wolf spirit. It was silver. It was cold fire. It was the void. They called her a null because they thought she had nothing. They were wrong. She didn't lack magic. She was a black hole for it. She was a siphon. The weakness they despised was actually a rare, ancient power that the world had forgotten. She wasn't a shifter of wolves. She was a shifter of energy. She survived that night. She survived the next. She learned that while she couldn't turn into a wolf, she could reach into the fabric of the world and pull. She could tear the magic out of a beast. She could cloak herself in shadows so deep that even an alpha's nose couldn't find her. She built herself a new skin out of that silver fire. She became Viper. She took the name of a thing that strikes from the grass, a thing that kills before you even know it's there. She learned to fight with blades because she had no claws. She learned to be ruthless because mercy almost killed her. The carriage hits a rut, jolting Lyra back to the present. She blinks, the silver fading from her eyes. She touches the window pane. Her reflection is ghost-like in the glass. "Who are you?" The reflection seems to ask. "I am a mother," she answers silently. That is the only truth that matters. The mercenary Viper is a mask. The girl Lyra is a corpse. But the mother is the steel spine holding it all together. She thinks about the meeting in the tavern. She thinks about Kieran sitting across from her. It terrified her how easily she fell back into his orbit. When he looked at her, for a split second, the void inside her quieted. The silver flame settled. It was as if her soul recognized its other half, even if her mind screamed in protest. He had looked so tired. The lines around his eyes were deep canyons of stress. The blight is eating his kingdom alive, and he is powerless to stop it. The mighty Alpha, brought to his knees by a sickness he cannot bite, cannot claw, cannot command. And now he has hired the very weakness he cast out to save him. The irony burns in her throat like cheap whiskey. He needs a null. He needs a void walker. He needs her. But he doesn't know it's her. And he can never know. If he finds out that Viper is Lyra, he will take Lyra. He will claim his heir. He will drag them back into the political snake pit that she has spent 5 years escaping. She looks back at Lyra. The little girl shifts in her sleep, her hand curling into a fist. A tiny spark of silver light dances between her fingers, uncontrolled, raw magic. Lyra gently covers the child's hand, smothering the light. "I will protect you," she vows to the sleeping girl. "I will walk into his castle. I will kill his monsters. I will take his gold. And then we will vanish." But as the carriage rolls closer to the capital, closer to the towering walls of the Alpha's fortress, Lyra feels a different kind of fear. It isn't the fear of being caught. It is the fear of being seen. Because when he looked at her in the tavern, when he leaned in and inhaled her scent of rain and ozone, he didn't look away. He didn't turn his back. He leaned in. And a treacherous, broken part of her heart, the part that never left that courtyard, wanted him to stay there. She closes her eyes and leans her head back against the seat. The monster isn't just in the forest. The monster is in the memories. And she is about to walk right back into the belly of the beast. The journey is almost over. The capital awaits. And with it, the ghosts of everything she lost. The road to the capital is not merely a path of dirt and stone. It is a scar carved into the earth, winding through the ribs of the kingdom. As the small convoy moves deeper into the interior, the air changes. It grows heavier, charged with static electricity and the weight of forgotten prayers. They are no longer in the lawless borderlands. They are entering the sacred valley, the ancestral heart of the wolf kind. Here, the trees are ancient, their trunks as wide as houses, their branches weaving a canopy so thick it blots out the gray sky. But even here, the sickness has taken root. The leaves are brittle and brown. The moss hanging from the boughs is gray, dripping with a foul-smelling slime. The forest is holding its breath, waiting for a death that feels inevitable. Kieran calls for a halt. The carriage lurches to a stop. The horses whinny, nervous and skittish, their eyes rolling white. They smell it too. The unnatural silence. Lyra steps out of the carriage. She wraps her cloak tight, hiding the trembling of her hands. She tells Alara to stay inside, to draw the curtains. The child obeys, but Lyra can feel the hum of her daughter's magic, a low vibration that matches the frequency of this place. They have stopped before a massive rock formation jutting out of the earth like a jagged tooth. The moon's tear. It is a shrine as old as the first shift, a place where alphas have come for generations to receive the blessing of the goddess. It is made of black obsidian, slick and reflective, covered in carvings that predate the written language. Lyra keeps her distance. She stands in the shadow of a dying oak, watching. She knows this place. In the stories her mother told her, this was a place of healing. Now it looks like a tombstone. Kieran walks toward the obsidian monolith. He removes his gloves. He looks small standing next to the ancient stone. He looks human. He places his hand on the black surface, bowing his head. He is praying. The Alpha King, the most powerful wolf in the hemisphere, is begging a silent rock for a miracle. Lyra watches him, and a strange, twisting pain tightens her chest. She expects the stone to glow. She expects the golden light of the goddess to answer him, to wash away the fatigue on his face. But nothing happens. The stone remains cold. The connection is broken. The blight hasn't just attacked their bodies, it has severed the spiritual cord between the wolves and their creator. Kieran sighs, a sound of heavy defeat, and pulls his hand away. He turns to his men, his face a mask of stoic resolve. He is about to order them to move on. But then, the wind shifts. It blows from Lyra toward the stone. A low, resonant thrum fills the air. It is not a sound you hear with your ears. It is a sound you feel in your teeth, in the marrow of your bones. The obsidian monolith wakes up. Deep within the black rock, a faint, silver vein begins to pulse. It is a heartbeat. Thump thump. Thump thump. Kieran freezes. He spins around, staring at the stone, his hand going to the hilt of his sword. His guards tense up, scanning the trees for a threat. They don't understand. They think it's an attack. But Lyra knows. The blood drains from her face. The stone isn't reacting to the king. It is reacting to the null. It is reacting to the Voidwalker. She tries to step back, to fade into the trees, but the pull is magnetic. It is a physical force dragging at her navel. The ancient magic recognizes her. It doesn't care about her lack of scent. It doesn't care about the pack laws. It recognizes the frequency of the void. In her mind, a voice speaks. It is not a voice of words, but of images. A flash of silver fire consuming a rotting forest. A woman standing on a pile of bones, holding a scale. A child with eyes like two suns. The vessel, the wind whispers. The empty cup that must be filled. Lyra gasps, clutching her head. The vision is blinding. She sees the prophecy that the elders whispered about in forbidden texts, the one they said was a myth. When the gold rots, the silver must burn. Only the one who walks between the worlds can stitch the wound. She isn't just a mutant. She isn't just a mistake. She is the contingency plan. The goddess didn't forget her. The goddess built her for this exact moment. The pulsing light in the stone grows brighter, turning from a faint vein to a blinding crack of quicksilver. The air around Lyra begins to warp, shimmering like heat haze. Kieran turns. His eyes lock onto her. He sees the distortion in the air. He sees the way the shadows seem to bend toward her, caressing her cloak. He steps toward her, his expression bewildered, awestruck. "What are you?" he whispers. The question hangs in the air, heavy and dangerous. Lyra's heart hammers against her ribs like a trapped bird. If he realizes what she is, if he connects the Viper to the ancient myths of the Voidwalker, he will never let her go. He will lock her in a tower and use her as a battery to save his kingdom. Or worse, he will realize she is Lyra. She has to break the connection. She has to sever the link. She bites her tongue hard. The sharp copper taste of blood snaps her back to reality. She summons the void, not to project, but to smother. She wraps her aura in a suffocating blanket of nothingness, crushing the resonance, forcing the magic back down. The light in the stone sputters and dies. The thrumming silence returns. The wind stops. Lyra stumbles, feigning exhaustion. She drops to one knee, panting. The air. She rasps, making her voice sound rough and confused. There is something wrong with the air here. It makes my head spin. Kieran is at her side in an instant. He doesn't draw his sword. He reaches out and catches her arm to steady her. His grip is firm, warm. The contact sends a jolt of electricity up her arm that has nothing to do with magic and everything to do with the man. Did you feel that? He asks, his voice urgent. He looks from her to the stone and back again. The stone, it woke up. I haven't seen it light up in years. And it happened when you looked at it. Lyra shakes her head, pulling her arm away from his grasp. She stands up, brushing the dirt from her cloak, rebuilding her walls. I felt nothing but a headache, Your Majesty, she lies. Her voice is cold, dismissive. I am a mercenary, not a priestess. I don't deal in rocks and prayers. I deal in dead beasts. She turns her back on him and walks toward the carriage. She needs to get away from him. She needs to get away from the stone. Viper, he calls out. She stops, her hand on the carriage door. She doesn't turn around. The legends say the stone only sings for those chosen by fate, he says. His voice is quiet, thoughtful. Perhaps you are not just a killer. Perhaps you are the answer. Lyra laughs, a harsh, brittle sound. I'm nobody's answer, King Kieran. I'm just the cleanup crew for your mess. She rips the door open and climbs inside, slamming it shut behind her. She leans back against the velvet cushions, her chest heaving. Alara is awake. She is sitting up, clutching her doll. Her big eyes are wide and solemn. The rock was talking to you, Mama, Alara whispers. It said you are the fire. Lyra pulls her daughter into her lap, rocking her back and forth. Hush, baby. It was just the wind. Just the wind. But as the carriage lurches forward, leaving the sacred grove behind, Lyra looks down at her hands. Faint, spiderweb lines of silver light are fading from her fingertips. The myth has awakened. The prophecy has found its target. And no matter how fast she runs, no matter how hard she fights, she cannot outrun what she is. She is the void. And the void is hungry. The king suspects. The stone knows. And the shadows are listening. They're driving straight into the capital, and Lyra realizes with a sinking dread that she isn't invading the enemy's stronghold. She is walking into her own destiny. And destiny, she has learned, is a cruel and bloody business. The capital. The Iron Citadel. To the wolves of the outer territories, this place is a dream. It is a city of white stone and soaring towers, built on the bones of giants, protected by walls so high they scrape the belly of the clouds. It is supposed to be the safest place on earth. But as the carriage rattles through the heavy iron gates, Lyra sees the truth. The dream is rotting. The streets are too quiet. The markets are half empty. The flags hanging from the battlements are frayed, snapping in a wind that smells of stagnant water. The people walking the cobblestones keep their heads down, their shoulders hunched. There is no laughter here. There is only the heavy, suffocating pressure of fear. The carriage stops in the courtyard of the royal palace. It is a place Lyra remembers with a clarity that makes her stomach turn. She remembers the fountain with the weeping angel. She remembers the grand staircase where she once tripped and Kieran caught her, laughing. That was a lifetime ago. Now, she steps out of the carriage not as a clumsy girl, but as Viper. She moves with a predatory grace, her hand resting casually on the hilt of her blade. She instructs the nursemaid, a terrified woman Kieran assigned to them, to take Alara to the guest chambers and lock the door. She watches them go, her heart squeezing tight until they disappear around a corner. Only then does she turn to face the king. Kieran is waiting for her. He looks different here. In the tavern, he was a desperate man. In the forest, he was a pilgrim. Here, surrounded by his guards and his banners, he is the Alpha King. His posture is rigid. His face is a mask of stone. He nods to her, a sharp, professional gesture, and leads the way into the great hall. They are walking into the lion's den. The war room is cavernous, dominated by a massive table carved from a single slab of ancient redwood. Around it sit the Council of Elders. These are the wolves who rule the world. They are old, powerful, and steeped in tradition. They wear robes of velvet and silk, dripping with jewels that could feed the borderlands for a year. When Lyra enters, the conversation stops. It isn't a polite silence. It is a recoil. 12 pairs of eyes land on her. They scan her muddy boots, her worn leather armor, her hooded cloak. They flare their nostrils, inhaling the air, searching for her scent. And when they find nothing, when they realize she is a null, a scentless void in their sensory world, their expressions curl into sneers of disgust. To them, she isn't a person. She is a contaminant. An older wolf stands up. This is Lord Vane, the High Counselor. He has silver hair and eyes like chipped ice. Lyra remembers him. He was the one who whispered in Kieran's father's ear that the weak must be culled. He is the architect of her pain. Vane looks at Kieran, ignoring Lyra completely. His voice is smooth, cultured, and dripping with venom. He asks the king why he has brought a stray dog into the sanctuary. He asks if the royal guard has become so incompetent that they must hire scavengers from the mud. Kieran's jaw tightens. You can see the muscle jump. He replies that this scavenger is the only one who has successfully killed a blighted alpha without sustaining infection. He tells them she is a specialist. He tells them they are losing the war and they cannot afford to be proud. Vane laughs. It is a dry, dusty sound. He says that pride is all they have left. He says that bringing a scentless, godless creature into the war room is an insult to the ancestors. He demands that she be removed. He demands that she wait in the stables with the other beasts. Lyra stands perfectly still. Inside, the fire is raging. She wants to burn him. She wants to unleash the void and show him exactly who is weak. But she holds it back. She is Viper. Viper doesn't care about insults. Viper only cares about the job. But then, the world fights back. It happens in a heartbeat. The heavy double doors of the war room burst open. It isn't a messenger. It isn't a servant. It is a guard. One of the elite royal sentinels. But he isn't right. His armor is battered. His helmet is missing. And his eyes are glowing with that terrible violet light. He has been turned. The blight has breached the palace. The infected guard lets out a howl that shatters the glass in the windows. He lunges across the room, moving with supernatural speed, heading straight for Lord Vane. The counselors scream. They scramble back, overturning chairs. They are politicians, not warriors. They freeze. Kieran draws his sword, shouting a command, but he is at the far end of the table. He is too far away. Vane falls back, terror erasing his arrogance. The beast is on him, claws raised, ready to tear out his throat. Lyra moves. She doesn't think. She flows. She vaults over the table, landing between the counselor and the beast. She doesn't draw her sword. There is no room. She uses her body. She drives her shoulder into the infected guard's chest, using his own momentum against him. They crash to the floor in a tangle of limbs. The beast snaps at her face, its breath rotting and hot. Lyra feels the corruption trying to latch onto her skin, trying to infect her. But she is a null. The magic slides off her like water off oil. She grabs the beast by the hair and slams its head into the stone floor. Crack. It isn't enough. The blight keeps the body moving even when the brain is broken. The guard thrashes, throwing her off. He scrambles up, focusing on her now. Kieran is there. He swings his sword, a perfect arc of steel, severing the beast's arm. But the creature doesn't stop. It doesn't feel pain. It tackles Kieran, driving him back against the wall. The king is strong, but the blight is stronger. The infected guard's remaining hand closes around Kieran's throat, squeezing. Kieran gasps, his face turning red, his alpha power useless against a creature that has no soul to command. Lyra sees the fear in Kieran's eyes. Not fear of death, but fear of failure. She pulls a dagger from her boot. It is a crude thing, iron and salt. She sprints forward. She doesn't aim for the heart. She aims for the neck. With a savage cry, she drives the blade into the base of the creature's skull, severing the spine. She twists the knife. The guard goes limp. He falls to the floor, dead weight. Silence returns to the room. Heavy, thick, suffocating. Kieran slides down the wall, coughing, massaging his bruised throat. He looks up at Lyra. His eyes are wide, filled with adrenaline and something else. He looks at her like he has never seen a woman before. For a second, just a second, there is a connection. A spark. He starts to reach a hand out to her. "Thank you," he wheezes. But the moment is shattered before it can breathe. "Monster!" The scream comes from Lord Vane. He has pulled himself up from the floor, trembling. He isn't looking at the dead guard. He is pointing a shaking finger at Lyra. "Did you see how she moved?" Vane shouts, his voice shrill with hysteria. "She touched the blight and didn't turn. She fights like a demon. She is one of them." The other counselors murmur in agreement. They don't see a savior. They see a threat. They see a woman who is immune to the laws of nature. Kieran stands up. He looks from his counsel to Lyra. He looks trapped. "She saved your life, Vane," Kieran growls, his voice raspy. "She is an abomination." Vane spits. "Get her out of this hall. If she must stay, let her stay in the dungeons. Do not let her walk among us." Lyra looks at Kieran. She waits. This is the test. This is the moment where he can be the king she once believed in. He can tell them to shut up. He can claim her as his champion. Kieran looks at her. He sees the blood on her hands. He sees the fear in his counsel's eyes. He knows that his kingdom is hanging by a thread, and if he loses the support of the council, he loses everything. He lowers his eyes. He breaks eye contact. "Escort the mercenary to the lower barracks," Kieran says. His voice is flat. "Dead. She will stay there until she is needed for the mission." The betrayal hits Lyra harder than the beast ever could. It is a physical blow to the chest. He chose them. Again. 5 years later, and he is still the boy who is afraid of what people think. 2 guards step forward, hesitating. They are afraid of her now. Lyra doesn't wait for them to touch her. She sheathes her dagger. She wipes the black blood from her cheek with the back of her hand. She looks at Kieran, forcing him to look at her. "You don't need to escort me," she says. Her voice is soft, dangerous. "I know where the trash belongs." She turns on her heel and walks out of the great hall. She walks with her head high, her spine made of steel. But inside, she is bleeding. She walks through the gilded corridors, down the stairs, past the servants who press themselves against the walls to avoid her. She reaches the lower levels, the cold stone rooms reserved for soldiers and dogs. She finds the room where Alara is hiding. She slips inside and locks the door. Alara is sitting on the narrow bed, playing with a loose thread on the quilt. She looks up, smiling. "Did you see the king, Mama? Is he nice?" Lyra leans back against the door, sliding down until she hits the floor. She pulls her knees to her chest. She feels the sting of tears she refuses to shed. "No, baby," she whispers into the dark. "He isn't nice. He is just a man." She closes her eyes. The first clash is over. She won the fight, but she lost the war. They don't want her help. They just want her utility. But that's fine. Viper doesn't need their love. She just needs their access. Tonight, while the castle sleeps, while Kieran drinks wine to wash away the taste of his own cowardice, she will move. She will find the archives. She will find the cure. And she will remind them all why you should never, ever corner a snake. The battle lines are drawn. It isn't just Lyra against the monsters anymore. It is Lyra against the world. And the world is about to find out that it picked a fight with the wrong mother. The Royal Archives are a graveyard of paper. It is a massive, circular tower filled with the smell of dry ink, cracking leather, and centuries of dust. It is the only place in the citadel where the air is still. Outside, the wind howls against the stone, carrying the scent of sickness and fear. Inside, there is only the silence of the dead. It is 3 a.m. The castle is asleep. Or pretending to be. Lyra is not asleep. She is here, buried in the back corner of the restricted section, surrounded by piles of crumbling scrolls. She is reading by the light of a single, stolen candle. Her eyes burn with exhaustion, but she cannot stop. She is hunting. Not for a beast, but for a sentence. A formula. A cure. She traces the faded text with a gloved finger. The shadow blight consumes the spirit first, then the flesh. To halt the rot, one must sever the link to the text ends there. Torn away. Frustration bubbles up in her throat, hot and acidic. She slams the book shut, sending a puff of dust into the air. It's useless. The alphas of old didn't write down how to save people, they only wrote down how to conquer them. She leans back in the heavy wooden chair, rubbing her temples. Her shoulder throbs. The bruise from the beast in the forest has turned a deep, ugly purple, and the grapple in the war room tore the stitches. She hasn't looked at it. She doesn't have time for pain. Then, a sound breaks the silence. The heavy iron door of the archives groans open. Lyra freezes. She blows out the candle instantly, plunging her corner into darkness. She slides a dagger from her sleeve, holding it reverse grip, pressed against her forearm. She holds her breath, becoming one with the shadows. Footsteps echo on the stone floor. They are heavy, but they drag slightly. The footsteps of a man walking under a crushing weight. A lantern swings into view, cutting through the gloom. The light catches the profile of a face that haunts her nightmares and her dreams. Kieran. He isn't wearing his crown. He isn't wearing the heavy fur cloak of office. He is in a simple white linen shirt, unbuttoned at the top, and dark trousers. His hair is messy, as if he has been running his hands through it for hours. He looks younger like this. He looks like the boy she used to know. He walks aimlessly through the rows of books, not looking at the titles. He is looking for peace. He stops near a window, resting his forehead against the cool glass, staring out at his dying city. Lyra watches him from the dark. She should leave. She should sneak out the back way. But her feet are rooted to the floor. He sighs, a sound that rattles in his chest. I know you're there, he says softly. Lyra doesn't move. She doesn't breathe. You don't have a scent, Viper, he continues, not turning around. But you have a presence. The air feels colder when you're nearby. It feels quiet. He turns slowly, lifting the lantern. The light swings, finding her huddled in the chair. He doesn't look surprised. He looks relieved. Lyra doesn't lower the dagger. Did you come to send me to the kennels personally, Your Majesty? Her voice is sharp, a defensive weapon. Kieran winces. He walks toward her, moving slowly, hands raised to show he is unarmed. He sets the lantern on the table between them. The light casts long, dancing shadows on the walls. I came to apologize, he says. The words hang in the air, foreign and heavy. Kings don't apologize. Especially not to mercenaries. I don't need your apology, Lyra says, standing up. She keeps the table between them. I need access. You gave me the pass to the archives. That's all the payment I require. I had to do it, he says, his voice gaining a desperate edge. Vane, the council, they are terrified. If I had defended you, they would have locked you up. By banishing you to the barracks, I gave you freedom of movement. I gave you the shadows. Lyra pauses. It is a tactical truth. A politician's maneuver. It makes sense, but it still stings. You play a dangerous game, Wolf King, she murmurs. One day, you'll sacrifice the wrong piece. He laughs bitterly. I already have. He steps closer, ignoring the dagger. He looks at her, really looks at her. His gaze drops to her shoulder. He sees the way she is favoring her left side. He sees the dark stain seeping through the fabric of her tunic. "You're bleeding," he says. It isn't a question. "I'm fine." "Sit down," he commands. It isn't the alpha voice. It is the voice of a man who is tired of seeing people hurt. Lyra hesitates. Every instinct screams at her to run. But the pain in her shoulder is a dull roar, and the way he is looking at her, with raw, naked concern, disarms her. She slowly sits back down. Kieran walks around the table. He kneels beside her chair. He is so close she can feel the heat radiating from his skin. He smells of soap and fatigue. He reaches out, his fingers hovering over her shoulder. "May I?" he asks. She nods stiffly. He gently peels back the fabric of her tunic. The air hisses through his teeth when he sees the wound. It is ugly, inflamed, the edges angry and red. "This needs to be cleaned," he says quietly. "Hold still." He produces a small flask from his pocket, high-proof brandy, and a clean handkerchief. He pours the alcohol over the wound. Lyra bites her lip to keep from crying out. She trembles, her hand gripping the armrest so hard the wood creaks. "Breathe," he whispers. "Just breathe." His hands are gentle. Surprisingly so. These are the hands that wield a sword, the hands that signed her exile order. But right now, they're the hands of a healer. He cleans the wound, his touch lingering on her skin. The intimacy of the moment is suffocating. The silence of the library wraps around them like a cocoon. "Why do you do it?" he asks softly, focusing on his work. "Why do you fight for a kingdom that treats you like filth? You could have taken the gold and run." Lyra looks down at the top of his head. She wants to tell him, "I do it for our daughter." But she says, because the monsters don't care if you're a king or a beggar. They eat everyone just the same. Someone has to stand between them and the innocent. Kieran stops. He looks up. His face is inches from hers. His eyes are pools of molten gold, swirling with conflicting emotions. "You sound like her," he whispers. Lyra's heart stops. "Like who?" "A girl I knew," Kieran says. He looks away, staring into the middle distance. "Years ago. She was different. Like you." The pack called her weak because she couldn't shift. But she had a fire in her. A quiet, stubborn fire. He laughs, a sound full of self-loathing. "I sent her away. I told myself I was doing it for the pack. I told myself she wouldn't survive the winter if she stayed. But the truth is, I was afraid." "Afraid of what?" Lyra asks, her voice barely a breath. She needs to know. After 5 years of hating him, she needs to know the truth. Kieran looks back at her. His eyes are wet. "I was afraid of how much I needed her. An alpha is supposed to be strong, independent. But when I was with her, I didn't want to be an alpha. I just wanted to be Kieran. And that terrified me." A tear slips down Lyra's cheek beneath her hood. She catches it before it falls. He didn't reject her because he hated her. He rejected her because he loved her, and he was too much of a coward to admit it. It doesn't fix what he did. It doesn't undo the years of suffering. But it changes the shape of the pain. It turns the anger into tragedy. "She's dead now," Kieran says, his voice cracking. "I sent scouts to find her a year later. They found nothing. Just snow and silence. I killed her." He looks at Lyra. He doesn't see Lyra. He sees Viper. He sees a stranger who reminds him of his ghost. He reaches up, his hand cupping her cheek. His thumb brushes against the rough fabric of her hood. He is searching for comfort. He is searching for absolution. "You don't have a scent," he whispers, leaning in. "It's the only time my head stops pounding. Everyone else, their emotions, their fear, their ambition, it's so loud. But you're quiet. You are the eye of the storm." He leans closer. His breath ghosts against her lips. Lyra's heart hammers against her ribs. She should push him away. She should draw the dagger. She is Viper. She is the mercenary. But she is also Lyra. And the pull of the mate bond, dormant for so long, snaps into place with the force of a gravity well. She finds herself leaning in. Her eyes flutter closed. "Kieran," she breathes. He freezes. She used his name. Not, Your Majesty. Not Wolf King. Just his name. Spoken with the familiarity of a lover, not a stranger. He pulls back slightly, his eyes searching hers, trying to pierce the shadows of her hood. Who are you? He asks. The question is urgent now. Why do I feel like I've known you for 1,000 years? Lyra realizes her mistake. She pulls back, standing up abruptly. The chair scrapes loudly against the stone floor, shattering the moment. I am the one you hired to kill your monsters, she says, her voice trembling. She turns away, hiding her face. Don't confuse gratitude for something else, King Kieran. You are grieving a ghost. Do not try to make me wear her face. She grabs the book from the table, the one with the torn page, and clutches it to her chest. I have work to do, she says. And so do you. She walks away, moving fast, fleeing the warmth of the lantern light. She flees into the darkness of the stacks. Kieran stays on the floor, kneeling in the pool of light. He doesn't follow her. He touches his own chest, right over his heart, as if he has been struck. I see you, he whispers to the empty air. I don't know who you are, Viper. But I see you. All of you. From the shadows, Lyra hears him. She leans against a bookshelf, pressing the book to her mouth to stifle a sob. He sees her. But he doesn't know her. And tomorrow, she is going to have to betray him. Because she found something in the book before she closed it. A map. A location of the source. And she can't tell him where it is. Because if the king goes there, he will die. She has to go alone. She has to leave him again. Because loving him means saving him. And saving him means saying goodbye. Dawn breaks over the iron citadel, but it brings no light. The sun is a pale, sickly bruise behind the gray clouds. The air is thick with the static of a storm that refuses to break. Lyra is moving fast. The encounter in the archives shook her to her core. She has the location of the source, a cavern deep beneath the sleeping giant mountain, but she knows she cannot go there as Viper. And she cannot stay here as Lyra. She rushes back to the lower barracks, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm against her ribs. Pack. Grab Alara. Run. That is the only plan. The mission is over. She will save the world on her own terms, far away from the golden eyes of the king who almost made her forget who she was. But when she reaches the room, the door is open. The wood is splintered around the lock. The room is empty. The doll, the ragged, beloved doll Alara sleeps with, is lying face down on the cold stone floor. Panic, cold and absolute, washes over Lyra. It is a physical blow that nearly drops her to her knees. The silence of the room screams at her. Gone. 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 Then, the drums start. Boom. 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 The sound comes from the main courtyard. It is the summoning drum. The sound used to call the pack to witness a judgment. An execution. Lyra doesn't think. She doesn't breathe. She turns and runs. She sprints through the corridors, ignoring the pain in her shoulder, ignoring the startled cries of the servants. She bursts through the heavy oak doors and into the courtyard. The entire court is there. The counselors. The generals. The elite guards. And in the center, on a raised dais, stands Lord Vane. He looks triumphant. He looks like a man who has finally trapped the wolf that has been terrorizing his sheep. And in his grip, struggling and crying, is Alara. The child is terrified. Her small hands are clawing at Vane's velvet sleeves. Sparks of raw, silver magic are popping off her skin like firecrackers, uncontrolled and dangerous. Mama! Alara screams. The sound rips Lyra open. Let her go. Lyra's voice is a shriek, raw and primal. She tears through the crowd, shoving armored guards aside as if they were made of straw. She stops at the foot of the dais, her chest heaving, her hand gripping the hilt of her blade so hard her leather glove creaks. Vane smiles. It is a cruel, thin thing. He looks out at the gathered crowd. He looks at Kieran, who is standing on the balcony above, gripping the railing, his face pale with confusion. We searched the mercenaries' quarters, Vane announces, his voice booming. And look what we found. A child. But not just a child. A vessel of chaotic magic. A null spawn. He shakes Lyra roughly. The girl cries out, and a pulse of silver energy knocks the hat off a nearby guard. The crowd gasps, shrinking back. Abomination, someone shouts. This is the source of the rot. Vane yells, pointing a shaking finger at the weeping girl. The prophecy says the void will consume us. This child is the void. She is the one bringing the blight into our walls. Liar. Lyra screams. She draws her swords. She is innocent. She is just a child. And you, Vane sneers, looking down at Lyra. You brought her here. You are the carrier. Who are you really, Viper? Show your king the face of the traitor. Two guards lunge at Lyra from behind. She spins, parrying their spears, but a third one grabs her cloak. He yanks it back. The clasp snaps. The heavy wool falls away. The hood drops. The silence that falls over the courtyard is deafening. It is louder than the drums. Louder than the wind. Lyra stands exposed. Her hair, chopped short but unmistakably hers. Her face older, harder, scarred, but still the face of the girl who vanished 5 years ago. Kieran freezes on the balcony. His knuckles turn white on the stone railing. The air leaves his lungs in a rush. He looks at Lyra. Then he looks at the child in Vane's arms. He sees the amber eyes. He sees the shape of the jaw. He sees the truth. It hits him like a physical blow. The woman he hired is the woman he loved. The child he is hunting is the child he made. Lyra, he whispers. The name is a prayer and a curse. Vane hears it. He laughs. Lyra? The exile? The null who was too weak to survive? So, you crawled back. You crawled back to finish what your cursed bloodline started. You brought this monster to destroy us. She is not a monster. Lyra yells, looking up at the balcony, locking eyes with Kieran. She is begging him. Not for herself, but for their daughter. Kieran, tell him. Tell him she is innocent. This is the moment. The world holds its breath. The king must choose. He must rush down the stairs, draw his sword, and cut down the man holding his daughter. He must claim them. But Kieran doesn't move. He is paralyzed. He is staring at Lyra with wide, horrified eyes. He is in shock. His mind is trying to reconcile the dead girl with the mercenary, the lover with the stranger. He is drowning in guilt, in confusion, in the sudden, terrifying realization that he has a daughter he almost killed. To Lyra, his stillness looks like hesitation. To Lyra, his silence looks like rejection. Again. He cannot help you, Vane gloats. Because he knows what you are. You are the rot, Lyra. You are the disease. Vane pulls a dagger from his belt. He holds it to Lyra's throat. We must cleanse the bloodline. We must kill the root to save the tree. Lyra screams. Something snaps inside Lyra. It isn't a mental break. It is a spiritual detonation. The wall she built around the void, the dam she erected to keep her power hidden, shatters. No. The word carries a force that knocks the front row of guards off their feet. Lyra doesn't shift into a wolf. She shifts into something else. Her eyes turn completely silver, no iris, no pupil, just liquid mercury. The air around her drops 20 degrees in a second. Frost races across the cobblestones, shattering the stone. She lifts her hand. Vane freezes. He tries to move the knife, but his arm won't obey. He is paralyzed by a pressure that feels like the bottom of the ocean. You called me weak, Lyra speaks, but her voice is layered, distorted, echoing with the power of 1,000 ancestors. You called me nothing. She steps forward. The ground shakes with every footfall. The silver fire erupts from her skin, forming great, phantom wings of ash and starlight behind her back. I am not the rot, she says, her voice rising to a terrifying crescendo. I am the cure. And I am done asking for permission to exist. She clenches her fist. A blast of silver energy explodes from her body. It isn't wild. It is targeted. It hits the dais like a hammer of God. Vane is thrown backward, flying through the air to crash against the castle wall. He drops Lyra. The child falls, but Lyra is there. She moves faster than the eye can follow. She catches her daughter before she hits the ground. Lyra stands in the center of the ruin, holding Lyra to her chest. She is surrounded by guards, by the council, by the king. But she looks untouchable. She looks terrifying. She looks up at Kieran one last time. The silver fades from her eyes just enough to show the heartbreak beneath. You hesitated, she whispers. The wind carries her voice straight to his ears. I gave you a second chance, Kieran. And you hesitated. Kieran reaches out, finding his voice at last. Lyra, wait. I didn't. Stay back, she snarls. The silver fire flares up again, a wall of defensive flames separating her from him. Do not come near us. If you follow me, if you hunt us, I will burn this kingdom to the ground. She turns her back on him. She turns her back on the home she wanted to return to. She grabs a smoke bomb from her belt, a mercenary's trick, and smashes it on the ground. A thick, gray cloud erupts, blinding the guards, choking the air. By the time the smoke clears, the dais is empty. The mercenary is gone. The child is gone. And Kieran is left standing on the balcony, his hand reaching out to nothing, while his council screams for blood and his heart shatters into dust. The mask has dropped. The secret is out. And the Alpha King realizes, too late, that the most dangerous thing in his kingdom wasn't the monster in the woods. It was the woman he forced to become one. The war has truly begun. And this time, Lyra isn't fighting for acceptance. She is fighting for vengeance. The sleeping giant is not just a mountain. It is a wound in the earth. It is a jagged peak of black granite that pierces the sky, perpetually shrouded in storm clouds that refuse to rain. This is where the sickness started. This is where the ley lines of the kingdom converge, twisted and knotted like a broken limb. Lyra stands at the mouth of the lower cavern. The wind here screams. It tears at her clothes, whipping her hair across her face, trying to push her back. But she does not move. She cannot move backwards. There is nothing behind her but betrayal. Lyra is huddled behind a boulder, wrapped in Lyra's cloak. The child is shaking, not from the cold, but from the proximity to the source. The magic here is thick, radioactive, humming with a frequency that makes your teeth ache. To a shifter, it is poison. To a null, it is fuel. Lyra can feel it. The void inside her chest is vibrating, hungry, responding to the massive reservoir of dark energy beneath her feet. She looks at her hands. They are glowing. Not the faint shimmer of before, but a solid, terrifying white light. Her skin is becoming translucent, revealing veins of quicksilver beneath. She hears them before she sees them. The sound of armored boots on stone. The panting of wolves. The shout of command. Kieran appears around the bend of the mountain path. He is running. He has abandoned his horse, abandoned his heavy fur cloak. He is covered in sweat and mud. He spots her standing at the edge of the abyss, and he skids to a halt. His chest heaves. He looks at her, really looks at her, and sees the woman he exiled, the mercenary he hired, and the mother of his child all at once. The realization is a visible weight on his shoulders, crushing him. He takes a step forward. He reaches out a hand. He opens his mouth to speak, to beg, to explain why he froze in the courtyard. To tell her that he loves her, that he has loved her every day of the 5 years she was gone. But Lyra raises a hand. The gesture is sharp, final. A wall of silver fire erupts between them, scorching the rock. She shakes her head. Her eyes are cold, devoid of the warmth he saw in the library. There is no mercy left in her. She used it all up. But Kieran isn't the only one who followed her. Behind him, emerging from the tree line like roaches from the woodwork, comes Lord Vane. And he is not alone. He has brought the Shadow Guard soldiers who have voluntarily let the blight into their veins to gain power. They are hulking, deformed monstrosities, half wolf, half corpse, their eyes glowing with that sick violet light. Vane laughs. The sound echoes off the canyon walls, competing with the thunder. He doesn't look like a counselor anymore. The veneer of civilization has cracked. His skin is gray, his veins black. He has been drinking from the poison well for a long time. He shouts that she has nowhere left to run. He shouts that the sacrifice must be made. He points his sword at Lyra. He says the child is the key to opening the full power of the source, and he intends to turn the lock. Kieran turns on Vane. He draws his sword, placing himself between the monsters and his mate. He screams that Vane is a traitor. He screams that he will kill anyone who touches them. But there are too many of them. The Shadow Guard surges forward. Kieran fights with the fury of a desperate king. He cuts down the first beast, then the second. But a third slams into him, knocking him to the ground. A fourth bites into his arm. Kieran goes down under a pile of rotting fur and snapping teeth. He is strong, but he is mortal. And he is dying. Lyra watches him fall. Time seems to slow down. She sees his blood, the alpha blood splash onto the black rock. She sees Lyra scream, a silent sound in the roaring wind. She sees Vane stepping over Kieran's body, heading straight for the child. Something inside Lyra breaks. It isn't a snapping twig. It is the sound of a tectonic plate shifting. It is the sound of a dam bursting under the weight of an ocean. She stops fighting the void. She stops trying to be human. She stops trying to be a wolf. She accepts what she is. I am the null, she thinks. I am the end. She throws her head back and screams. But it isn't a scream of pain. It is a scream of power. A pillar of silver light explodes from her body, shooting straight up into the storm clouds. The sky cracks open. The gray clouds are obliterated, replaced by a swirling vortex of white fire. The ground shakes. The mountain groans. Boulders the size of carriages tear loose from the cliffs above and crash down, crushing the shadow guards. Vane freezes. He looks up, shielding his eyes from the blinding radiance. Lyra begins to rise. She lifts off the ground, suspended by the sheer force of her energy. The silver fire consumes her clothes, her hair, her skin. She is no longer a woman. She is an avatar of the void. Her body is a silhouette of starlight. Her eyes are two supernovas. She looks down at Vane. He is small. He is insignificant. He is a speck of dust on the windshield of a hurricane. She extends a hand. She doesn't fire a blast of magic. She simply takes. She pulls the magic out of him. She pulls the blight out of his veins. She pulls the life out of his cells. Vane screams as his body begins to wither. The false power of the shadow blight is ripped from him, sucked into the black hole of Lyra's palm. His skin turns to ash. His bones turn to dust. In seconds, the High Counselor is nothing but a stain on the wind. The remaining shadow guards turn to flee, but there is no escape. Lyra expands her field. The silver wave washes over them. It washes over Kieran, who is lying in a pool of his own blood. The magic hits the monsters, and they dissolve. The magic hits Kieran, and it heals. The rot in his wounds hisses and vanishes. The gashes knit together. The poison is purged. He gasps, air rushing back into his lungs, and pushes himself up. He looks up at the goddess floating above him, terrified and awestruck. Lyra lowers herself to the ground. The light fades, but it doesn't disappear. It clings to her skin like a second layer of armor. She stands before the entrance to the source. She turns to look at Kieran. He is on his knees, staring at her. He looks at her as if she is the most terrifying and beautiful thing he has ever seen. He tries to speak. He tries to say her name. But Lyra turns away. She walks to Lyra, who is peeking out from behind the rock. The child isn't scared. The child runs to her, burying her face in Lyra's legs. Lyra strokes her daughter's hair. Her hand is still glowing. But the battle isn't over. A deep, guttural sound comes from the cave mouth. The earth vibrates. Lyra turns back to the cavern. Vane was just a symptom. The disease is still down there. And now it is awake. From the darkness of the source, a massive claw emerges. It is made of shadow and obsidian, larger than a house. A yellow eye, slit-pupilled and ancient, opens in the gloom. It is the Blight Lord, the ancient enemy that the first alphas trapped beneath the mountain 1,000 years ago. The seal has broken. Lyra steps forward, placing herself between the monster and her family. She draws her swords, which are now coated in the silver flame of the void. She looks back at Kieran. "Take her," she commands. Her voice is calm. It is the calm of someone who has accepted their fate. Kieran scrambles to his feet. "What?" "Take Alara," Lyra says. "Run. Get off the mountain." "No," Kieran shouts, stumbling toward her. "I am not leaving you. Not again. We fight this together." "You cannot fight this," Lyra says. She looks at the massive eye staring at her from the dark. It feeds on spirit. It feeds on alpha power. If you stay, it will drink you dry. Only a null can stand against it. "Lyra, please," Kieran begs. He reaches for her hand. "Don't do this. We can find another way." She looks at his hand. She remembers the warmth of it. She remembers the way he held her when they were children. She remembers the way he rejected her in the rain. She steps back, out of his reach. "There is no other way," she says. "You wanted a sacrifice, Kieran. You wanted someone to pay the price for the pack's survival." She smiles. It is a sad, heartbreaking smile. "I am not your sacrifice. I am your savior. And this is how I save you." She turns and walks toward the monster. "Lyra," he screams. She doesn't stop. She doesn't look back. She breaks into a run, charging straight into the gaping maw of the cave, straight into the darkness, burning like a falling star. The darkness swallows her whole. A massive shockwave blasts from the cave mouth, knocking Kieran and Alara to the ground. The entrance to the source collapses, tons of rock crashing down, sealing the cavern shut. Silence falls over the mountain. The wind stops. The storm clouds break. A single ray of sunlight pierces the gloom, landing on the pile of rocks where Lyra disappeared. Kieran stares at the rubble. He stares at the tomb of the woman he loved. He opens his mouth to scream, but no sound comes out. Only the sound of a heart breaking over and over again. She is gone. She saved them. And she left him alone with the consequences of his sins. The silence of the mountain is heavier than the stone. It is a silence that rings in the ears. It is the sound of a world that has stopped spinning. The dust from the collapse hangs in the air, glittering like crushed diamonds in the single, cruel shaft of sunlight that pierces the clouds. Kieran does not move. He cannot. He is kneeling in the dirt, his knees bruised on the hard rock, staring at the wall of rubble that separates him from the woman he loves. The woman he killed. Not with a sword, but with a sentence spoken 5 years ago in the rain. He holds Alara tight against his chest. The child is not crying. That is the strangest part. The Alpha King is weeping, his shoulders shaking with the force of a grief that threatens to tear him apart, but the child is calm. She is the eye of the storm. Kieran looks at his hands. They are clean. The rot is gone. The sickness is gone. His power, the golden, thrumming energy of the Alpha, has returned. He can feel the pack link snapping back into place, hundreds of voices in his head rejoicing that the shadow has lifted. They are cheering. They are celebrating the victory. They do not know the cost. He hates them for it. He hates himself. He has his kingdom back. He has his health. He has his heir. But he feels emptier than he ever did when the blight was eating his soul. He reaches out and touches the cold, rough stone of the cave-in. He presses his forehead against it. He whispers to the rock. He begs the mountain to give her back. He offers his crown. He offers his life. He offers everything he owns just to see her walk out of the dark one more time. He wants to tell her he was wrong. He wants to tell her that she wasn't the weak one. He was. You are weak. The words echo in his memory, a ghost that will haunt him until his dying day. He called her weak because she couldn't shift. He called her weak because she was gentle. But she walked into the darkness alone to fight a god, while he sits here in the sun, safe and sound. He realizes now that strength isn't about claws. It isn't about teeth or how loud you can howl. Strength is the ability to burn yourself to ash to keep someone else warm. And Lyra. Lyra was a bonfire. Alara pulls away from his chest. She walks to the wall of rocks. She places her tiny hand on a massive boulder, right where Lyra disappeared. Kieran watches her, his vision blurred with tears. He expects her to scream. He expects her to break. But Lyra smiles. It is a small, secret smile. The smile of a girl who knows a game that the adults don't understand. She isn't gone, Papa, the child whispers. Kieran shakes his head. Alara, the cave collapsed. She saved us. She isn't gone, Alara repeats, her voice firm. She taps the rock. Listen. Kieran frowns. He wipes his eyes. He crawls forward, pressing his ear to the stone. He expects silence. He expects the finality of the grave. But then he hears it. Deep within the earth. Miles down. Buried under tons of granite and history. Thump thump. It is faint. It is rhythmic. It sounds like a drum beating in the deep. Thump thump. It is not the heartbeat of a wolf. It is slower. Cold. It is the pulse of the void. And then a vibration travels through the rock, stinging Kieran's cheek. A tiny crack appears in the boulder Alara is touching. From the crack, a wisp of silver smoke escapes. It doesn't dissipate in the wind. It curls around Kieran's hand, warm and familiar. It smells of ozone and rain. She didn't die. She is down there, in the dark, fighting the Blight Lord. Or perhaps, taming him. Kieran pulls back, his eyes wide. The grief in his chest transforms into something else. Something sharper. Something like hope mixed with terror. She is alive. But she is trapped. Or maybe she is choosing to stay. Maybe she has finally found a place where she doesn't have to hide her power. A place where she is the queen of the empty spaces. He looks at the silver smoke curling around his fingers. He realizes the war isn't over. The blight is gone from the surface, yes. But the balance of power has shifted. The Alpha King rules the day. But the Null Queen rules the dark. And one day, the mountain will open again. The question is, when she comes out, who will she be? Will she be Lyra, the girl who loved him? Or will she be the Viper, the goddess of ash and vengeance who learned that the only person she can trust is herself? Kieran stands up. He picks up his daughter. He looks at the blocked entrance of the cave with a new resolve. He will not leave this mountain. He will build his castle here on the rocks. He will dig until his fingers bleed. He will wait. Because he knows the truth now. The rejection didn't break her. It forged her. And the next time they meet, he won't be the one on the throne. The wind howls across the peak, carrying the final whisper of the prophecy. When the gold rots, the silver burns. The fire is still burning. And deep in the earth, something is waking up. Call to action. So, I have to ask you. If you were Kieran, standing in front of that collapsed cave, knowing that the woman you broke is down there becoming a god, would you dig her out? Or would you be afraid of what comes out of the dark? Because we all love a redemption story. We all love the idea of the Alpha begging for forgiveness. But sometimes, forgiveness is just another word for surrender. And Lyra? She doesn't look like the surrendering type anymore. What do you think? Is she a hero, sacrificing herself for love? Or has she finally realized that she is too powerful for a world that treated her like garbage? If this story made your heart race, if it made you feel the cold fire of the void, then you are one of us. You belong to the pack that knows the truth. The quiet ones are the dangerous ones. Don't let the story end here. Hit that subscribe button for Cindy's Wolfheart stories. Turn on the notification bell. Because the mountain is cracking. The silver flame is rising. And, trust me, you do not want to miss what happens when the Queen of the Void finally comes home. Subscribe now. Let's burn together.